You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and today it is July 7th, Monday, 2025. I hope everybody had a good 4th of July. Donald Trump certainly had a great 4th of July. The pictures from the White House, and Chris, if you can show a couple of those, are just spectacular. By the way, this is CorsiNation.com, doing podcasts every weekday. You can find me on X at Corsi Jerome 1 and on Substack, it's JeromeCorsiPhD.com. And we're doing stories on Substack almost every day, and the audience is growing. I'm very pleased about that. Okay, so now I want to show, if you can, Chris, show just a couple of the pictures from the White House. I'll try to give you a link. There were several up on the internet overnight. He had a great celebration on the 4th of July, including a signing of this, what he calls the One Big Beautiful Bill. And the reason I want to highlight this is, first of all, the contrast between Biden's 4th of July and Trump's 4th of July is obvious and tremendous. And so, Chris, I want you to come on for a minute if you can. Well, let's comment on these things, because the pictures from the White House and the balcony where Trump was with his wife were just really spectacular over the weekend. So if we can show a couple of those, Chris, if you can find them. Yes, there we go. They're just really, Trump signing the bill, which is a great accomplishment. And here they are in the balcony, Trump and Melania. They make a great couple. They were doing the Trump dance, and they even shared a tender kiss. It was really quite charming, and contrasted to Joe Biden kind of wandering around in his swimsuit on some beach where he didn't know where he was. I mean, Chris, the contrast was dramatic, wasn't it?
Well, again, the contrast basically between the presidencies has been just as dramatic. So it's basically symbolic. Where you see Donald Trump push his spending bill, he got his party on board to do that with a very small margin in the House. Yes, there were a lot of adjustments that were made. We understand that's going to happen. But Joe Biden doddering around, as usual, is kind of like a little microcosm of his 4-year presidency, his one-term presidency, if you will.
Except that from behind the scenes, Obama and the other Democratic operatives were advancing the ruining of the country. By the way, I'm working on, hope to finish for publication this week, the first article on ActBlue. And the ActBlue real scandal is billions of dollars that were diverted from the border agreements made by Obama and Biden in 2014 with Honduras to open the border to child sex trade, to fentanyl from China. Vatican was involved, and the money involved huge bank mortgage schemes where the operatives from ActBlue were getting literally millions of dollars in mortgage money for buying houses that cost only $1 million. This is work from Sean Taylor, who was a assistant police chief in a small town in Tennessee, who did a 15-year investigation of this. It's been turned over to the Justice Department. I think this is going to be one that's become a major case. And I hope that article, the information is already being turned over to the Department of Justice, and so it's going to now get into the public domain, and the articles are being written. Okay, first thing I want to cover too on this is that I want to do a contrast here with the Kash Patel and Dan Bongino between 2023 and 2025. Now, there's a video of Kash Patel, and if you can cue it up, Chris, it may take you a minute, but I'll give the context of the story, and then we can show this. So the story here, contrasting ActBlue and what we got with the Justice Department right now, is a developing controversy over this Jeffrey Epstein. And Zero Hedge has got a very good article on it, which Chris has got featured here. And it's saying that essentially this Jeffrey Epstein and his colleague, this Ghislaine Maxwell, they've both been charged with sex trafficking, and Maxwell was convicted, but Epstein supposedly committed suicide. Now, Kash Patel, when he was not head of the FBI, was very vocal on this. And yet at the same time, now he's head of the FBI, he's saying essentially that, Jeffrey Epstein had no clients. He didn't blackmail anybody, that this island he had was just an island. There's no tapes of the sex between people like Bill Clinton and underage minors. And so therefore it's a nothing burger. And he definitely didn't kill himself. Now, again, to believe this, to believe that the videos that exist weren't stolen by the deep state CIA, that the film that was shown of Epstein committing suicide or whatever weren't doctored. I mean, this is, again, it's Kash Patel and Bongino are undermining their credibility, and it's got to stop. They need to have some immediate action in order to reverse this. So let's if you got it queued up, Chris, let's play the contrast between Kash Patel in 2023 and 2025. For this before
Why is the
he was.
FBI
Here we go. Go ahead.
protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but he released the names, right?
And I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information and the American public is going to get as much as we can release. He killed himself. Do you think, would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities? Or do you think we would also participate in not prosecuting people we had evidence to prosecute people on? Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you if it existed?
Okay, now what's so disappointing to me is that I don't think Kash Patel or Don Bongino realize what they're dealing with, Dan Bongino. There's still a lot of legacy rogue agents in the FBI and the Department of Justice. They have no intention of exposing the deep state. They don't want the Trump mega agenda to succeed. They'd be happy to go back to proving Russian collusion if you gave them a chance. So, of course, they're going to destroy evidence. They're going to hide evidence. They're going to tell Kash Patel and Dan Bongino they don't have anything. They're going to doctor tapes. And Kash Patel and Dan Bongino aren't smart enough, evidently, to know they're being bamboozled. Okay, so the prosecution ought to focus on who's destroying evidence within the Department of Justice, who's trying to prevent the release of this material. It's obvious that Epstein was an intelligence agent, probably working for both the CIA and Mossad. It wouldn't surprise me if he was doing both. And they were setting up top politicians and others for blackmail schemes. And Bill Clinton was on the list, and so was Bill Gates. Donald Trump was not on the list, or that information would have been out all over the place years ago. But the idea that it's being suppressed is extremely disappointing, not because no evidence exists, but because Patel and Bongino aren't catching on to the fact they're getting no cooperation from within these agencies. The only way they're going to get anywhere is if they start firing people. Now, this big, beautiful bill gives them money to hire people. So people like Ed Martin, who are dramatically understaffed, need to beef up their staff so that they can handle the information we're giving them on ActBlue. We need to get deeply involved in this. The whole case is understood. Sean Taylor's got that ActBlue case laid out, and I'm not about to have it suppressed. Congress is investigating. We'll be in touch with Congress and over all that material as well. If I start publishing these articles in American Thinker, it's not going to be able to be suppressed. And the whole idea of preventing these articles from coming out, anything that happens to try to prevent them from coming out is only going to give more attention to what I'm writing, what I've already written, and I'm about to submit for publication. Okay, so this story is out now. It's been communicated already to the Department of Justice. It's already in Ed Martin's office. And so therefore, the federal government's been alerted and the evidence is available. And it's being now, as soon as we get some staff in the Department of Justice, we'll begin going after ActBlue for the real scandal. $1 billion was a money laundering scandal involving major banks, including TD Bank. It's not simply the $3 billion fine TD Bank has already paid for doing identity theft, stealing people's Social Security numbers in order to make contributions to Democratic political candidates, having to register with the FEC, Federal Election Commission, to say this contribution came from this person, which are part of the rules of the FEC. The federal government did not investigate the Obama crimes or the Clinton crimes or the Biden crimes because the government was the criminal. And now that's what's got to come out. Somebody's going to have the courage to bring that out. Okay, the war on the CIA has just begun. Now that this bill is passed, Trump has passed a major hurdle. He's got the funds he needs to accomplish the goals he set out. And I think Donald Trump is the one person in government who has the capabilities and the intent to fill that mission. Now, I'm going to stress that Donald Trump needs immediately, the first thing Donald Trump needs to do this morning is to talk about the tragedy in Texas, the flood. Because pretty soon he's going to get blamed. Oh, the cuts caused people weren't warned. The Democrats are going to come out with all kinds of stories blaming the flood and the deaths on Trump. That's all they're capable of doing right now. That and running Muslims for office and mayor of New York City who claim they're black. I mean, this isn't a joke. I don't know what is. But Trump can't wait here. He's got to get on an airplane. He's got to get to Texas. He's got to tell Governor Abbott whatever it takes to deal with this tragedy. He's going to make sure the federal government responds immediately and in a massive way to help these people. We cannot let the FEMA tragedies that occurred under the Biden administration in North Carolina become the standard for the Trump administration. So this is an important message. Trump's going to need to get on the airplane, make statements, get down there personally, go see the area, pledge money, get FEMA in there, make sure those people are taken care of. It's a tragedy. It should not have happened. The United States of America has got to return to being caring and solving the problem. And if the federal government and FEMA can't do it, close down FEMA. Give the money to the states, let the states do it. We've got to get these people handled. They got to get this situation resolved. Okay, now I want to move on to a couple other stories. And Benjamin Netanyahu has landed in Washington and he's going to engage in talks with Trump. Now, this is a historically important moment because decisions have to be made on what's next with the war between Israel and Iran. We're at an historic moment. Their nuclear program has been decimated. All the fake news you see out there saying that their nuclear program can be revived in 20 minutes, all this is nonsense. Those sites were returned to rubble. It's going to take years just to get into those sites with all the rubble on top of them. And once you get into them, the senior level of the scientists in Iran, nuclear scientists, have been decimated by Israeli agents who were planted there going back to the 2005, 2006 era. And Ayatollah Khomeini was allowed to survive because he's going to be given a chance to sign a peace agreement. And Khomeini's going to say, well, we're returning to our nuclear program. These people are mad. And they don't realize that the Revolutionary Guard top leadership was decimated. The Revolutionary Guard right now are turning to want to work with Israel. Ayatollah Khomeini thought he had 2 nuclear weapons and said, the world's going to see the world historic. He decided to commit suicide during the war. He dropped 2 of these nuclear weapons that he had on Israel in a barrage of like 1,500 missiles. And Israeli intelligence said that if he fired 2 of them in that barrage, one of them had a 70% chance of getting through to Tel Aviv. Well, the Revolutionary Guard, now turning against Ayatollah Khomeini, worked with China. 2 airplanes from China landed in Iran, and the nuclear weapons were removed from Iran, along with the highly enriched uranium that Iran had. So now the talks with Netanyahu are going to proceed along a couple lines. Number one, Trump is going to want to put pressure on the Ayatollah to agree to abandon the nuclear program. If he doesn't, there'll be economic sanctions that will be crippling to Iran. The people in Iran will be suffering famine. They're not going to be able to eat. They're going to turn on the regime. Which I think is a very important move by President Trump. The United States has been good in the Middle East with a decisive military attack, but we've been lousy in having prolonged engagements where we occupy these countries, trying to produce regime change. It doesn't work. Regime change has to come from within. If it doesn't come from within, you're going to get nowhere here. So Donald Trump, that's going to be theme number one. Theme number two is that he wants to return to the Abraham Accords. And for that, he'd like, I'm sure, Netanyahu to stop the offensive in Gaza, stop the shooting, and see if we can't get a peace process started. Now, President Trump has no intention of letting Hamas return to the Gaza because he knows that if Palestinians come back into the Gaza, it's just a repeat of an old pattern that never worked to begin with. Doing this for 50 years. Hamas, Palestinian Authority comes back, Hamas returns, they go right back to wanting to destroy the state of Israel. They get supplied by Egypt with military material through the tunnels that connect Egypt with the Gaza Strip. We're back to the same game. Now, over the weekend, something really historic and fundamental happened. We had a group of Muslim clerics, top clerics in Hebron, which is the West Bank largest city. It's south of Jerusalem. It's a very holy city, both to the Jewish faith and to Islam. And the leader of Hebron's most influential party said essentially that we want cooperation with Israel. He said, we're not supporting the Palestinian Authority. We want peace. We want jobs. So these sheiks wrote a statement saying the Emirate of Hebron shall recognize the state of Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people. And the state of Israel shall recognize the Emirate of Hebron as the representative of the Arab residents in the Hebron district. Okay, that's an important statement. Okay, so it sets a fair and decent arrangement that would replace the Oslo Accords, which only brought death, economic destruction, and disaster. Now, the Oslo Accords were agreed to by Israel and the Palestinian Authority in the 1990s that brought a corrupt Palestinian Authority, and these Muslim clerics here in Hebron were saying this, that the Oslo Accords only brought a crisis, conflict. They brought the corrupt Palestinian Authority instead of recognizing the traditional, authentic local leadership, the clans, the great families that shaped the Palestinian society. Okay, now Palestine is really a myth. There never was a country, Palestine. Palestine in modern history referred to the territory where the Jews and the Muslims of various kinds, and they all lived together under this British protectorate. And when 1948, when Harry Truman allowed for the division of Palestine to create the state of Israel, that was when the Palestinians claimed that was their rightful territory, and they wanted a two-state solution in which there was Palestine coexisting with Israel. Problem was the Palestinian Authority still wanted to kill the Jews. As long as they had that goal, a two-state solution was only a move to get Israel to make compromises, or they might move forward to destroy Israel. This is a fundamental change. And I think Donald Trump is going to be discussing this with Netanyahu. The two are going to come to an agreement that they are going to give this process a chance. This process is going to involve Libya. And I've been writing that the government of Libya has reached out and wants to do an accord with the Trump administration in which they will allow the Palestinians who want to leave voluntarily to have accommodations of decent living in Libya. Now, Trump has said his real vision is to create the Riviera of the Middle East along northern Africa and along Palestine, or along the Gaza Strip. Forget about Palestine, the Gaza Strip. And that can be done without U.S. taxpayer dollars. All we have to do is have the government of the United States issue certain guarantees that will induce private capital to come forward and risk the first stage capital to begin building hotels and resorts. The Middle East can bloom. It can bloom only with the ideas Donald Trump has implanted, which is peace through prosperity, not through war. War only causes the next war. It's not going to solve anything. And so therefore, Donald Trump is on exactly the right track, and it's a brilliant, decisive, game-changing move. and it deserves the support of the American people. Okay, now lastly, I want to stress again that gold is still trading at $3,300 an ounce. It's still above $3,300. And we're not out of the economic woods yet. The key part of this big, beautiful bill was to keep the spending going, even though it's disastrous that we don't get a curb on it, but to keep it going in order not to produce a worldwide depression. Now, Donald Trump is going to then address the economy as one of his next missions. And by the way, the same methodology is being taken with Ukraine. Cut off the funding, stop the funding in Iran economically. The mullahs have no choice but to concede. Otherwise, they'll be toppled from within by their own people. The same with Zelensky. He has no money and no arms. He can't fight a war. Otherwise, he's just a cheap, stupid comic wearing a costume of, a military costume and playing an actor's role as if he were the president. He's not the legitimate president. He canceled the elections. And Putin is going to take over more territory because Putin's going to make sure that he secures Ukraine. The western part of Ukraine is neo-Nazi, and this war was provoked by Poroshenko and Zelensky sending in these neo-Nazi brigades to kill Russian-speaking freedom fighters who want independence, these two western provinces that Russia now occupies. Same with the United Nations. Donald Trump's begun defunding it. Don't defund these things, they die. Defund NATO. These are all institutions that need to die. But the next solution in solving the debt crisis is going to have to be involving cryptocurrency, and the cryptocurrency fund to be created and to be applied to various of the continuing obligations of the U.S. government that are on the part of the budget that's non-discretionary. Social Security spending, which has to be spent, spending on Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare has to be spent. And if those can be spent and paid in cryptocurrencies, we might have a fundamental solution that takes a lot of the long-term obligations off the balance sheet of the United States to resume our solvency. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I want to stress at the end of this broadcast that Donald Trump needs to go to Texas. Now, I also want to stress calling Swiss America, because we're going into the summer here, and we're going to emerge in the fall with economics being at the top of the list. Call 1-800-519-6268. You can get a copy of this book, How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush. And you've got to read this to see the economic forces that are really at play. Again, write down this number, 1-800-519-6268. You can create a self-directed IRA. They will do it for you at Swiss America, and it'll be safe. You'll do it according to the rules, and you'll be able still to get a tax deduction, but you'll be able to hold gold and silver within your IRA and have an asset that appreciates, where the dollar is going to continue depreciating. I'm glad to be back after the 4th of July. I hope everybody had a great holiday. We're getting back to work today, and I believe Donald Trump has now concluded the first chapter of his presidency by getting this bill passed and funding the government the way he wants to fund it. Now let's let's fire 90% of the federal employees, get these legacy employees out of there. They're only working for themselves, and they'll just wait until Trump is gone in order to resume their woke agenda. But with replacement and reducing the size of the federal government, I think Donald Trump can prove that we are going to attack the deep state effectively this time. And I think next step is let's really examine closing down the CIA altogether. That's going to happen as we investigate and begin having criminal prosecutions against John Brennan and others, maybe even treasonous prosecutions for their role in the Russian collusion hoax. Chris, any final comments before we wrap up?
Again, hey, did you hear about what happened in Pennsylvania? There were some arrests, by the way. No, excuse me. There weren't arrests. There were convictions, by the way, of voter fraud, election fraud. There were. It was a small area in Pennsylvania, but I believe it was 3 people. I'm sure you can guess which party they're from. That played around with the elections. Had their friends give them information. They took information from other voters who didn't vote and created fake mail-in ballots. They're now on their way to jail.
Well, I think we're going to see, as I predicted and talked about, we're going to see a massive, coming right out of our work at God's Five Stones. So Gods, no apostrophe, 5, you spell it 5, F-I-V-E. Stones is plural, gods5stones.com. The work on voter and fraud that Andrew Paquette finding these algorithms. State Board of Election voter rolls have produced millions of false records that can be used in mail-in ballot schemes. We're going to see convictions. And Donald Trump will issue an executive order, I believe, in August or September, demanding that for 2026, the existing state voter rolls cannot be used and they can't use the computers. They're going to have to go back to voter ID and proof of citizenships to register, new registration, and paper balloting all the way through. No machines. I think this is coming. And these are changes that we helped produce by the research that Andrew Paquette did and the fact that we prevented the algorithms from being used in the 2024 presidential election. You notice the battleground states stopped counting on election night and all reported for Donald Trump. They didn't continue the counting in 2020 until they produced up fake mail-in ballots in order to steal the election for Biden. We're getting a lot of truth. This ActBlue is going to, I think, be extremely difficult for the Democrats to explain how the Democratic Party funded Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all their NGOs, supported their candidates through running the sex trade on the border with children, bringing fentanyl in from China, and allowing the Sinaloa drug cartel to sell as much cocaine and crack cocaine as they wanted while suppressing our Border Patrol agents from enforcing the law. Dr. Jerome Corsi, this is CorsiNation.com. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. God bless.